And let's get excited about today. This is a revolution. It's really cool to see this new era come together. Hopefully we can all seize a little bit of these opportunities and contribute, and also vet that it's absolutely real and that it's the right thing to do. And that's why the speakers are here today to sort of illuminate us on these aspects. So thank you, Niels. The floor is yours whenever you want to get started.
All right.
Let's just make sure. So you have until 10, 10. We say 10, and then we'll open for question.
All right, that sounds good. Just a quick check. Do you see my screen
yes.
With my opening slide, and you still have the camera on?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay, well, thanks a lot, Alistair. Thanks a lot for having me on this program today. I think we will see a lot of very inspiring ideas and visions. We will also probably talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we have. When we were discussing in preparation of this, we quickly found a few synergies in what we want to achieve with the program and the simple and effective solutions that Fonroche Lighting has to offer. I think in perspective of the previous speaker, Scott, I think we see that there are a lot of very complex and also very simple ideas to work on the opportunity, but also the challenges of a zero carbon situation in 2050. Smart resilient cities, disruptive technologies. We are even talking about ecological paradises. It's all very visionary, very optimistic, and I think that there is reason to be optimistic about some of the things that are going on and that we are working on together. I want to take you through an example of an in-time vision with very focused innovation, but also some very tangible results. I also use a few resources in my narrative. I refer back to information from Our World in Data, but I also use a very interesting series of papers that was released by the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, who has been releasing this series of papers about the low carbon transition strategies for the United States. So I will start with the very big picture and then now narrow down to some of the things that we have been doing with success and some very interesting opportunities associated with that. Just to set the perspective, just to remind, and I start with the bad news, but I will then move towards the good news. But we probably all seen this picture, and we can say that the situation today is really worse than what was expected about 10 years ago. Climate change is accelerating, and we are passing very dangerous limits. And you can say, and this is one of the things that I picked up in some of the reports that I read that I found pretty alarming, that right now our planet is warmer than any decade or century, as far as we know, of the entire Holocene. So that is 10,000 years of civilization after the last ice age. So we know that we need to go through a transformation. We have set our objectives on 2050 right now, in particular led by the Paris Climate Agreement. And at the core of the transformation to a zero carbon system is power generation. And we saw in the previous presentation how important the zero carbon power generation is if we want to continue to use so much of those innovations, and we see a few more today, that are based on electricity. The power sector itself is accounting for perhaps about 40% of the direct emissions of CO2, and that is burning coal and natural gas primarily to generate electricity, but also electrification is a vital part of getting to zero in the other sectors. On the flip side, according to the International Energy Agency, we could reach about 40% of the Paris Climate Agreement targets by implementing energy efficient solutions that are available right now. So altogether, we're already good about 75 to 80% with our ambitions, and it's all a matter of choices, priorities, and implementation. And what we see throughout the day, if I look at the program, there are so many opportunities associated with this energy transition, and there are going to be millions of jobs to build the new green economy. So the UN Sustainable Development Solution Network has published low carbon transition strategies for the United States. And the conclusion is that it's very feasible to hit the carbon neutrality by 2050. It's about shifting the system away from burning fuels, because those are really challenging, to decarbonize towards electricity. But the good news is that their models, they show that that situation will have a net cost of not more than 0.4% of GDP in 2050, which is very, very realistic. And electricity in that equation is about 60% of that final energy demand by 2050. And the good news is that we already see all over the United States and beyond that wind and solar are displacing natural gas, not even to mention coal, just purely on a cost basis. It is cheaper, more efficient to make a transition to sustainable, renewable energy. And basically already today, we are at grid parity. That means that the levelized cost of energy services are no higher with clean energy than they are with the dirty variant. And you see on this picture, the Winchester Mountains in Arizona with 450-foot tall wind turbines and a field of solar panels to produce electricity for the city of Tucson. Now, the city of Tucson is a very interesting segue for me to talk about, where we are. And I spent almost all of my professional career in lighting, and in particular outdoor and public lighting. And it's a very interesting space. It's the space that went in through innovation. We just had the LED transition behind us. And I worked about 22 years for Philips Lighting, now known as Signify. And the last year, I worked for a much smaller company from France. I will talk about that a little bit later. Fonroche Lighting. We are part of Fonroche Lighting America here, and we do something very, very effective in perspective of this energy transition with solar street lighting. Now, today there are more than 50 million streetlights in the United States, and if you looked to that sector alone, and every year we are adding more, and we know that our infrastructure that we have, just look outside, is very much obsolete. On average, the street lights installed are about 25 years old. So that means that the technology we use there is a technology that was available 25 years ago, which tells you something about the tremendous improvement opportunity that is associated with street lighting. And when I look at the reports of the US Energy Information Administration, they estimate that in 2019, the US residential and commercial sectors combined used about 216 billion kilowatt hours for the electricity for lighting alone. That's about 8% of the total electricity consumption and about 5% of the total US electricity consumption, which is massive. So the commercial sector, which includes commercial and institutional buildings and public street and highway lighting, consumed about 141 billion kilowatt hours for lighting in 2019, which is equal to about 10% of that sector. So public lighting, my space, accounts for nearly 5% of global CO2 emissions and about 20 to 40% of the municipality's electricity bill. What is this? And therefore switching to, energy efficient alternatives can bring huge benefits to stretch city budgets. Just an example, and I'm glad that we have a few cities also participating in today's program, because I hope that what I am going to tell you is inspiring for some of the sustainability plans and some of the improvement plans for infrastructure and safety. Public lighting is for Los Angeles was a major improvement initiative. And Los Angeles made a tremendous transition of tens of thousands of streetlights into LED streetlights over the last few years. And today they are saving up to 10 million per year in electricity cost after switching to LEDs, and a further 3 million in maintenance savings, just with changing the traditional streetlight to an LED light. But there are even better alternatives. So look at those. So we are part of the Fonroche group, and Fonroche is a group of 3 companies, 3 lines of business in Agen, close to Toulouse in the southwest of France, and they have 3 activities. They have Fonroche geothermal, Fonroche biogas, and Fonroche lighting. So right now, the geothermal line of business is operating around 8 sites. They have drilling in progress, and they made an investment of around 400 million. The brothers from biogas, they have about 3 to 4 plants operating right now. They have 4 under construction and a few planned. Also both on the energy production and energy supply side of the transition. The third one is a little bit interesting because it started also as energy production with solar, but they made a change because that solar panels, solar farms is a very, very dynamic and very difficult business still today. They moved their solar, their focus on solar electricity to the load side and developed lighting solutions. And today, Fonroche Lighting worldwide installed more than 100,000 streetlights, and I will tell you a little bit more about that. We have about 200 employees, and we are doing research, development, design, manufacturing, and we are present in about 10 countries right now.
Hey, Niels, just keeping a time check, so we should be opening quite soon for questions. We have a couple of questions, so this is very exciting. Keep on, but I just want to make sure we keep the time. So we have
Sounds good. Sounds good. I will go fast and get to some of and the good news is that a solar streetlight is so simple that I don't have to tell you a lot about it. But let's move to the next thing, and just a quick idea of what happened and why solar street lighting is so interesting. Both the solar panels that we use, as well as the LED light sources and storage associated, made so much improvement in terms of performance and price that right now a solar streetlight is such a better alternative to the conventional streetlight. And it's interesting because there's always resistance to change, and we've seen it in the discussion about electrical vehicles from combustion vehicles, is that there are all kinds of emotions associated with it. But right now we know that solar street lighting is as expensive as a grid-tied lighting. So let's look at the product that we installed 100,000 times on the planet. This is our smart light. It's an integrated system. It has electricity generation. It has energy storage with the battery that you see on the top, and it has the light source. We use crystalline silicon panels, and they are used for both solar lighting and solar generation processes. We have a few very exceptional features in there, specifically that our system is very efficient, so it may, and it's resistant to all kind of temperatures. So just quickly an overview, it is as simple as it looks. And you know, the street light that needs to function every single day, 365 days of a year, charges during the day and functions during the night. It's low-hanging fruit. We have opportunities everywhere, every day, with tens of thousands of streetlights that we install every year in the United States. It is not the future, it is now. And just to give you an idea, we have about 5,000 times more incoming solar radiation on our planet than all the power we use in the world. So we have a lot of resources to tap into, and that energy comes for free.
So Niels, taking the opportunity to ask a question as it relates. So one participant, Frank from Strasbourg, is asking, you know, how do you handle, you know, fog or mousson or, you know, snow? You know, in Boston, obviously, you know, starting soon, we'll have some interesting weather. So how does it work in that capacity?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And of course, there are always concerns about how you deal with that. Now, what we do for every single light point that we install, we look at the average sunlight over the last 10 years. And we take the worst case scenario and we make sure that we dimension our system such that it could last even under those worst case conditions. So we guarantee that every single streetlight that we install will work 365 days per year without exception.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. So I think let's start wrapping up. Niels, a few minutes. Do we have any more questions, everybody? This was the end, so perfect. Okay, you want to go through this slide, maybe, Niels?
Well, if one thing that I think is important that I like to show is just the impact of installing a streetlight, and I hope that the municipalities, the cities that we have in our program today realize that installing a streetlight is a very complex thing when you do it in a conventional way. And it has a lot of environmental impact, trenching the cables, connecting it to the grid, making sure it works. Where the streetlights that we install are so simple. It's just drilling a hole, stick the pole in it, and you save so much cost just by not only with energy, because the sun never sends a bill, but also because you don't need to have all that infrastructural and civil work that is associated with it. And just to finish, of course, it will always work, even when there is power outages, which are way more frequent than bad weather. So the real concern should be with the conventional lighting and the power outages that makes it difficult to function, as opposed to what we do, dimensioning the system. I just wanted to give you one example to finish, which is Senegal. Senegal made a very, very bold decision. And as part of their renewable energy strategy, they decided to install 50,000 off-grid streetlights, which is fantastic. 30% of the country's infrastructure will be lit with Fonroche solar lighting, and this will be an extremely future-proof solution that contributes to their carbon neutral objectives that they have. So with that very, very interesting example, I can close my my presentation, Alistair. You see that I had a few examples there, but I think that the story speaks for himself. And I thank you very much for having me, and thanks everybody for listening to this presentation.